So how should you fact check Donald Trump? Hi, thanks for watching. Today is Friday, Fact Check Friday, and today I want to talk about the different ways that fact checkers can check the president. Now, I'm going to give you examples of what I think is the right way and the wrong way to fact check President Trump. As we all know, Trump exaggerates all the time, and he just had his State of the Union, and so all the different media companies have put out their fact checks on Trump for his State of the Union. And I'd like to go over what I think is persuasive and not persuasive ways of fact-checking him. So let's just jump into it, shall we? The first example I have is from the New York Times. Fact check President Trump's State of the Union address. And here's the fact check. President Trump claimed that American troops have been fighting in the Middle East for almost 19 years. This is false. It's been almost 18 years. Okay, stop. That is, while that's true, 18 is not 19. Who cares? Who cares? The issue is, if you nitpick about every little thing, then your reader, when they go to it, and if you have 20 statements, and 18 of them are these little nitpicky things, and 2 are whoppers, 2 are big, but 18 of them are just 19 instead of 18 or vice versa, whatever. People are going to get bored. They're not going to read the whole article, and your fact check is pretty much useless, okay? It reminds me of the just loser-looking guy, bald guy with the comb over and glasses, and it's actually, and it's funny because this is just a graphic, but every time I see it, I just think in my head, actually, that's just how I read it. And you don't want to be that person, If you're at work and someone's talking about the football game and, oh, the quarterback threw for 400 yards, it was awesome. You don't want to be the person that says, actually, he threw for 378 yards, so yeah, don't be that person. While you may be technically correct, it's a big who cares, right? And that's what this fact check was from the New York Times. This was a who cares. Let's take a look at another example. This is from Politico. State of the Union fact check. Trump said 1 in 3 women is sexually assaulted on the long journey north. That's partly true. And we have a little graphic here where it goes into it. And guess what? According to a 2017 report by Doctors Without Borders, found that 31% of female migrants were sexually abused while traveling through Mexico. So not 33%, 31%. Who cares, right? This is the kind of nitpicky, actually type of fact check that I don't think is useful. So here's another example from NPR Politics. Fact check. President Trump praised the number of women in Congress, but that's almost entirely because of Democrats, not Trump's party. Well, how is this a fact check, right? Trump made the statement, hey, look at all the women in Congress. Isn't this great? And you're going to fact check it by saying, yeah, but that's because of the Democrats, not the Republicans. Stop. He didn't say that. It's a nice thing. Can't we celebrate that there's a lot more women in Congress? I think it's a great thing. It's something we should applaud. But not according to NPR Politics. We need to be nitpicky about this whole thing. Those are some examples of, I just think, the wrong facts to check and the wrong way to go about it. But here are some good examples of fact-checking. And this is going to shock you, but this is from CNN. Claim, we have, quote, added 600,000 new manufacturing jobs, something which almost everyone said was impossible to do, but the fact is we are just getting started. Well, Trump is overstating the number of manufacturing jobs created during his presidency. About 454,000 were added since the beginning of 2017, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, so that claim is off by 30-something%, so that's a fair thing to fact check on. In fact, I would like to introduce a rule. Whatever you tip, right? Let's say you tip 20% when you go to the restaurant. If someone's within 20%, just give it to them. Like, just let that go. If you're cheap and you only tip 15%, then give someone 15% leeway when they're making a claim about a number. If it's more than that, you can call them out on it. But if it's less than that, if it's, 4% difference of what they've claimed, stop. That's not a helpful fact check, okay? What CNN did here is fair. They stated what the claim was, they stated what the actual numbers were, and they say that he overstated the number. That's great. Someone can overstate a number. It doesn't mean that it's a lie. It just means that it's an exaggeration. Those are different things. So in this case, CNN did a good job. Here's another example from CNN. Claim: more people are working now than at any time in our history. 157 million people at work. That's true, but it could do with some context. Okay. According to the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics released this month, employment numbers on household data sits at 156,694,000. As a percentage of the population, however, it was still below our pre-recession levels of employment. Okay, so he rounded up 156.694 to 157. That's fair. And it is fair to point out that it's not the highest percentage-wise, but the highest number. That all makes sense. And that is from fact checker Holmes Librand. Now, if you remember, I have made a video about him in the past. He was the fact checker for Weekly Standard. Weekly Standard, I thought, had a good fact-checking section, and they closed that down at the end of last year, so I'm happy to see that he got a new job. He's working at CNN, and who knows, maybe his influence at CNN, maybe CNN will become better fact-checkers because they've hired someone who's a good fact-checker. Let's hope that that's true, because I think that that's something that we all want. I don't want CNN to just be terrible at fact-checking. I want them to be good at fact-checking. And so I'm glad to see that their fact-checking from the State of the Union was actually pretty good. I'll give you one last example. Claim: this new era of cooperation can start with finally confirming more than 300 highly qualified nominees who are still stuck in the Senate. In some cases, years and years waiting. Not right. The Senate has failed to act on these nominations, which is unfair to the nominees and very unfair to the country. Now is the time for bipartisan action. So that was the claim by Trump in the State of the Union. And CNN here, this was Alex Rogers that did the fact check, says this is misleading. While it's true that confirmations for Trump nominees lag behind the rate of confirmation for other American presidents, it's inaccurate to suggest that it is entirely the fault of the Senate, which is controlled by the Republicans. Of the 705 key executive branch positions tracked by the Washington Post and the Nonpartisan Partnership for Public Service, 274 have not been confirmed. While Trump and Senate Republicans sharply criticized Democrats for slowing down the confirmation process, more than half of those, 144 to be exact, are open because the Trump administration has yet to nominate a candidate. Overall, the partnership analysis shows that only 54% of Trump's civilian executive branch nominees have been confirmed, much lower than the 77% of Obama nominees confirmed at the same point in his presidency. Now, this is a great fact check because it lays out the claim, it lays out what the facts are, and how it might be misinterpreted if you just went by President Trump's claim. So this was a very fair fact check. And that's one of the things. When you're dealing with President Trump, he will always round up, he will always exaggerate. And it is important to fact check him on things. But when you just nitpick little tiny things, I don't think that it's helpful. But in this case, I gave you 3 examples from CNN's fact check of the State of the Union that were actually pretty fair. Now, I just want to conclude with one little piece, art of the deal, from the 80s. And this is what Trump wrote about it over 30 years ago. I call it truthful hyperbole. It's an important form of exaggeration and a very effective form of promotion. He goes into it in detail in his book. We've known this about Trump for decades. This is what he does. He hypes everything up. And that's important to note if you're going to fact check him, right? If he hypes it too much, in my opinion, over 20%, yeah, call him out on it. If he just rounds up a little bit, let it go. Who cares, right? The main gist of it is true. Because what's really important, we want to count on fact checkers to check things that matter. Little tiny differences in numbers, nobody cares about. Mainstream media, just stop with that. Stick with things that are important and hold him accountable for those things. That's how I think that everyone should be fact-checking President Trump. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a great weekend. Peace. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. You can help me reach my goal of 1 million, make that 4,000 subscribers by hitting the like button and subscribing. Thanks.